and welcome to the Dementia Care Aware Medical Legal Partnership Network Legal Training on Housing. My name is Mahnoor Yunus, and I'm a legal fellow with the Medical Legal Partnership Network at UC Law SF. This presentation was developed with the input and support of the Dementia Care Aware statewide Medical Legal Partnership Network. These are our legal and clinical partners across California, and we are very grateful for their efforts in developing legal trainings like this one. I work for the UCSF UC Law Consortium on Law, Science, and Health Policy, which is a multidisciplinary collaborative that works on a variety of state and national projects, including Dementia Care Aware. We have partnered with legal aid organizations and health systems across the state to develop legal trainings for primary care teams on common legal issues experienced by people with cognitive impairment and their caregivers. The network provides trainings, tools, and resources through webinars, training modules, podcasts, and region-specific events. By the end of this training, we hope that you will learn about common housing issues that regularly impact people with cognitive impairment in California, understand the eviction process, reasonable accommodation and reasonable modification requests, and common habitability issues, and that you'll be able to explain ways that primary care providers and their care teams can help assist and advocate for their patients with housing issues. As a disclaimer, this presentation provides general information on housing. Laws can vary in the state of California on a county-by-county basis and also city-by-city. Let's go over a case example to find out what kind of legal help is available for tenants. In this case, Mr. K is 79 years old. He has lived in his apartment for 5 years. He pays his rent every month by depositing his check in a drop box at the on-site manager's office, as was stated in his lease agreement. He always addresses a check out to the same company and deposits it on the same day of the month. This month, his check was mailed back to him. He remembers receiving some papers from his property manager about a month ago, but does not remember what the paperwork said. Mr. K has had problems with electricity and water for some time. He called and left a message with the office, but they have not gotten back to him. He does not remember if he paid the utilities last month or not. Based on the facts in the scenario, there are two housing issues we've identified for Mr. K: eviction and habitability issues. Habitability is a tenant's right for the apartment to be maintained for human habitation. Here, there are a few signs that indicate Mr. K may need legal assistance because he could be at potential risk of eviction. Mr. K received paperwork from the property manager and his rent check was mailed back to him. If the issue is not resolved and the rent goes unpaid, Mr. K may be evicted for non-payment of rent. It is crucial to note that if the tenant receives any paperwork, they must be referred to legal assistance immediately. Mr. K is also experiencing water and electricity issues, which may be due to not paying his utility bills on time and the utilities consequently being shut off. There may be habitability issues at play here. It is also possible that an illegal self-help eviction is taking place. A self-help eviction occurs when a landlord turns off the power or takes other measures to evict a tenant without using proper court procedures. In the next few slides, we will go into more detail about eviction and habitability. We will also introduce two more legal issues: reasonable accommodations and reasonable modifications. Let's dive deeper into our first legal housing issue: eviction, which in legal terms is called an unlawful detainer. A landlord must serve written notice and legal paperwork to initiate the process of eviction, which removes a tenant from the rental property, and this process can move very quickly. A person who has been given written notice from their landlord or housing facility that they are at risk of eviction and/or is served with any legal paperwork must seek legal help immediately. Avoiding eviction is critical, not just because it prevents immediate homelessness. If somebody has an eviction on their record, it can make it difficult for them to find housing in the future. Landlords are not legally allowed to change the door locks, cut off electricity, or remove personal property before the eviction process has been completed. If a tenant experiences any of these issues, they should seek legal help as soon as possible. Law Help California is one of many free resources available to tenants to obtain free or low-cost legal advice and/or representation. Again, it is important to note that tenant protections may vary on a city-by-city and county-by-county basis. So how should providers respond when a patient is faced with the threat of eviction? If a patient is served with paperwork, they should refer the patient to legal assistance immediately. Clients facing eviction or housing instability should be connected to legal aid services as soon as possible. Early intervention is crucial and can save someone from losing their housing. Physicians can ask patients questions to assess their housing stability and determine whether they may be at risk of eviction. For example, they can ask, "Are you behind on your rent payments? Have you received any eviction threats, letters, or notices from your landlord saying that you are late on rent? Have you received any papers that look like they're from the court? Are you behind on or having trouble paying your utilities? Are you going without necessities like food or medicine to be able to pay rent?" Our next legal housing issue is reasonable accommodation and reasonable modification. A reasonable accommodation is a change in policy, rule, practice, or service to provide a tenant an equal opportunity to use and enjoy housing. People with disabilities may request a reasonable accommodation. Some examples of reasonable accommodations include waiving a no animal policy for a service dog, providing a closer parking spot or apartment on the first floor for someone with mobility challenges, and granting a request to change the rental due date. In contrast, a reasonable modification is a structural change that enables a person with a disability to have full enjoyment to their housing. The cost will usually be covered by the tenant. Some examples of reasonable modifications include installing a sit-down shower stall or grab bar in the bathroom for someone who is at risk of falling, or a ramp in the stairwell for someone with mobility challenges. So how should providers respond when a patient needs a reasonable accommodation? Letters from a physician can provide helpful support to explain to a landlord why a patient needs a reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation letters should include the following components: an explanation of how the disability impacts a patient's major life activities, a description of the accommodation being requested, and the nexus or relationship of why that accommodation would allow the tenant to have equal access or opportunity. These letters do not have to disclose a medical condition or diagnosis of the patient. Do not disclose any private health information without the express consent of your patient. The Disability California Rights website provides helpful guidance and sample templates for reasonable accommodation letters, which I have linked in this slide. Our final legal housing issue is habitability. Habitability requires landlords to maintain the rental property in a way that is fit for human habitation. This means the landlord must repair any issues that go beyond ordinary wear and tear. Examples of habitability issues include mold, inadequate heating, pest infestation, holes in the wall or ceiling, leaking pipes, and more. The California Civil Code provides that tenants have a basic right to water, electricity, heating, clean sanitation, and working plumbing. So, how should providers respond when their patients are experiencing habitability issues? Physicians can assist by writing a letter explaining the adverse effects the habitability issue or issues are having on the client's health. Physicians must state what condition is unsafe and how it is bad for the patient's health or well-being. Examples of this include mold causing asthma or respiratory issues, or rodent bites or presence causing illness. Physicians can also help in this situation by connecting the client with legal aid services to investigate the matter and provide help. Let's revisit our earlier case study with Mr. K. Now imagine Mr. K fell down the stairs in his apartment building stairwell and was severely injured, breaking his hip. He is now unable to go up and down the stairs to his apartment. Mr. K submitted a request to his landlord for an apartment on the first floor of the building to accommodate his mobility challenges. Mr. K's landlord refused to grant his request without giving any explanation why. How can Mr. K's physician help? Mr. K's physician can write him a reasonable accommodation letter for his disability. The letter must explain how Mr. K's disability affects his ability to walk and climb stairs, his request of moving to a first floor apartment, and how granting him this accommodation would allow him to have equal access to housing. Now let's go over some helpful resources for tenants. Law Help California is a statewide resource providing free information on common legal issues and information on local legal aid organizations and pro bono attorneys who can offer free or low-cost legal representation. Other resources tenants might need are emergency rental assistance programs. Tenants must meet certain requirements to qualify. Each program has different eligibility criteria, but some programs can help people even if they are not facing eviction. These resources include the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the U.S. Department of the Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Program. An additional resource is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, LIHEAP. This is a federal program aimed at assisting low-income households that pay a high portion of their income to meet their energy needs. Thank you for watching our training module on housing. We hope you found this training helpful. To learn more about the Medical Legal Partnership Network's education and training opportunities, please visit dementiacareaware.org/MLP.